Perfect. Are we ready?
Yes.
Good. So welcome everyone to the Understanding Online Classes seminar for this fall. Like Elena said, I think most of you are Visions and RX students, but if you aren't and you are interested in some of the support we provide, please hang out at the end and ask us some more questions about TRIO specifically. But for today, this really is a crash course and overview. I'm recognizing some of you that you've been here and you've done online classes. So if that's you, you might just be able to add some insight to what Elena and I go over from that student perspective. But this really is just some basics and what to expect and how to manage yourself. So welcome, and hopefully you get what you're looking for out of this.
So the first thing that we want to talk about is really understanding how your class is going to be set up. So we have different types of online classes, right? You have your more traditional online class where you're logging into Blackboard every week and keeping up with the deadlines that your instructors are putting out there for you. Some of your classes that are still strictly online, meaning you will not be coming to campus at all, will have scheduled Zoom meetings, okay? So your classes will not have an online required Zoom meeting unless it's indicated on your schedule. TBD means it will not meet. If there is anything in that slot indicating a day or time, that means there is a required scheduled Zoom meeting. Hopefully, being the first week in, if your class has a required scheduled Zoom meeting, you're made aware of this already and have the Zoom link from your instructor and all of that. If your class does have that required Zoom meeting, all of that information is going to come from your instructor through Blackboard, possibly through your email. So make sure you're keeping up with that. If you think that your class might have a required Zoom meeting, but you haven't gotten that information yet, stick around, let us know at the end, and we'll help you kind of troubleshoot that. Also,
Sorry, I have had this question actually twice today already with students who, for whatever reason, thought their class was fully online and didn't have a meeting and just misunderstood and asking now, hey, I'm just realizing I missed this. I can still be in the class. This isn't an issue for me, but how do I address this with my professor? So if you have, in the confusion of starting classes, sort of missed a meeting or not gone to your lab for your lab science, the short answer is just reach out to your professor and own your mistake. It's early in the semester, mistakes happen. Every professor is human. So just send an email to whatever email address they have in the syllabus and say, I can't believe I made this silly mistake. Is there anything I can do to make up this work? It won't happen again. But just admit the mistake and be human. And that's the best thing you can do if you have mixed something up.
Kind of on the opposite scale of that, if your class is an online meeting class and does not have a required Zoom meeting, but your instructor offers an optional Zoom meeting, it is highly, highly, highly recommended that you try to attend that if it fits into your schedule. Even if you're feeling comfortable with the course content, it's just a really great way to connect with your instructor, let them put a face to the name. You can provide insight, you can ask questions, but you never know, what you might need from your instructor. Or if you're doing well now, you're doing fine. That might not be the case towards the end of the semester. So when you go to ask for help from that instructor, they're going to know who you are. You're already going to have made that connection. So even if it's not a requirement, but there's an option to attend that Zoom meeting, it's, really strongly in your interest if you can to join. All right. All right, there we go. So where will my classes be, right? So some students, if this is your first online class, you might be thinking, I signed up for this online class. How does it work? We're actually going to take some time at the end to dive deep a little bit more into Blackboard. Again, being the first week, hopefully you guys, if you have not logged into Blackboard to access your online coursework, this is your big red flag to do that. Classes launched last week on Wednesday, which means your instructors have probably started to assign you guys some work. So depending on your class, a lot of your content is probably going to be through Blackboard. If you're taking a math or a science, even some psychology courses are using things like My Math Lab, My Stat Lab, these other online platforms you would have needed to purchase as part of the textbook material for the class. You'll have your own separate username and password, and that will be where the bulk of your online content is. Again, you will get all that information from your instructor. Sometimes your instructors will use kind of a combo of these things. So they might give you the assignments, right? So for example, maybe on Monday, you're logging into Blackboard and your instructor says X, Y, and Z is due this week on My Math Lab. So they might be kind of using a combo. They might say X, Y, and Z is due this week, and I want you to email it to me. Some might use Blackboard, and that's the only online system that you'll be using. You'll log into Blackboard at the beginning of the week. That's where you'll be uploading your assignments, and you'll really just be living there in Blackboard. Regardless of what combination this might look like, always make sure you're going to the source. So don't wait for emails to come from your instructor. We hear this time and time and time again. Students say, I didn't know I had anything due on Thursday. My instructor never emailed me. They're not going to. Taking an online course, there's a lot of expectation on you as the student to keep up with the course content. So always make sure you're going into Blackboard. We're going to talk about this a little bit more, but just to kind of put that out there for you guys. So how do you understand where that information is coming from? How do you understand which platform you're going to be using, when your due dates are? When in doubt, check your syllabus. This is the most important part of your success in an online course, okay? Your instructor has laid out all of the expectations for you in the syllabus, where your coursework is going to live, when the coursework is going to be assigned, and all of those due dates, all of the point value for your assignments, exams, quizzes, all of these things. So it's going to be the most consistent thing between all of your classes. Every single one of them is going to have a syllabus. It was launched last week. Consider this your contract for the course. Again, we hear this time and time again. I didn't know I had assignments due. My instructor never told me. It is your duty to be reading that syllabus and keeping up with the due dates on there. Okay, your instructor has laid this out for you, and the expectation now is on you guys that you're keeping up with that. Okay. It's also going to include things like how to contact your instructor, materials that you're going to use. Anything that you need to be successful is going to be listed there on your contract. Save it to your computer, print it, have this accessible however and wherever you do your coursework.
Perfect. So kind of moving along with that, expect every class to be different. And really it does go back to the syllabus. This is the thing that really does have, some contractual guidelines by those professors or, by the departments that those professors have to follow. So you can expect a basic outline from your syllabus to be the same across classes, but expect everything else to be different and that you're going to have to adjust for every class. So professors can set up their class however they choose. So if it's in Blackboard, they can choose to use some parts of it and not others. And maybe another professor uses only other parts of the Blackboard. I just had a student tell me that a professor set up a Blackboard just to give them a link to a Google Classroom. So they're working completely in Google rather than on Blackboard. Other professors I know pretty much post a syllabus in Blackboard and everything else is on YouTube, and you email your assignments in. So like everyone is different, and you just have to look at every class as its own individual thing and try not to get into a groove of I know what to do with my classes and I can run with it, because then the next semester someone is going to throw you something different in a different way that you'll need to access that class. Like, right, it is not the same as just like, well, this classroom there's a whiteboard instead of a blackboard with a person. Like it can be dramatically different class to class, and even sometimes the same professor will have two classes that run completely differently. That said, some things will be similar. You always have professor contact information. You will always have reading and assignments to do, and you are always going to have to manage your own time online. I think that's one of the biggest things, is figuring out how to break down your weeks and how to manage everything after you understand the basics of how to move through your classes.
Just to add something on that, Pinchton, now is the time to dive deep into this. If you have time today, this is your back call. Spend 15, 30 minutes logging into Blackboard, looking at all of your classes. If you can go ahead in your classes, just start exploring. If your instructor says we're going to be using a discussion board, maybe there's not a discussion post due this week, but go in, click, get used to adding your own post. Take a look at what it might look like when you need to upload an assignment. So just start exploring. Don't wait. Okay. Take the time now before things get busy, before your coursework ramps up. You'll really thank yourself if you take the time to do that now.
Absolutely. So common mistakes, and some of this goes back again to the syllabus is the most important thing. So relying on alerts or to do in Blackboard, and I think we will pull up a Blackboard page and kind of walk you through what it looks like, but there can be alerts and things that come up depending on how a professor sort of loaded in an assignment. You might get that sort of coming up on your weekly to do, but you don't want to rely on that, because every professor is going to have you submit work a little bit differently, and you want to be going into the syllabus and going into the Blackboard itself and seeing what's happening when. Don't rely on a professor to email you. Don't rely on your technology, other than if you have printed out your syllabus and maybe loaded into your phone reminders on when assignments are due. Don't rely on anything that you yourself didn't set up. And it's so true. I see people who fail class and then put it back on, well, the only place the professor told me work would be due was in the syllabus. And that's the only place the professor ever would have told you work was going to be due. Any professor who goes beyond that, and many do, we don't mean to be scaring you. We're kind of giving you like worst case scenario. But that is all a professor needs to do. The responsibility is yours to look through that syllabus and figure out when things are due. And in that regard, not keeping the syllabus handy. My personal recommendation is that on your desktop, on your computer, you have a folder for each of the classes you're in this semester. And that one of the first things you're doing is downloading your syllabus and adding it to that folder. I would also personally print it out if you have access to that, so you have a place that you can physically look at things. I like to check things off as they're completed. That kind of thing, but you want that syllabus ready to grab and look at a moment's notice. Other common mistakes, handing assignments in the wrong way. The most common version of that is maybe a professor is asking for work to be uploaded to Blackboard and you're emailing it, or you're trying to use like a Google document to do something that the professor then can't open. So you want to be sure that you are uploading work in the right way to Blackboard, or sending it in an email if it needs to go to an email. If it needs to go to an email, making sure it's the right email. It's a really common mistake is anyone who works at Mount Wachusett, their email address ends in like at mwcc.edu, but your student email is just at mwcc.edu. And it's very common that students will send emails and not include that .mass in there. And then it's going to the wrong place and you think you're handing work in and you're not. So just make sure, and some professors have you use a different email address. So just make sure you are double checking and triple checking. Am I handing this assignment in the way this professor wants it handed in? Other things, you know, and my last bullet point kind of speaks to that. Use the professor's preferred contact method. It will be in the syllabus. That is how you want to talk with them. And then the biggest mistake, probably of any of these, is waiting too long to ask for help. My advice is like, go to tutoring like early and often, even before you're positive that you need tutoring. You are so much better off spending 45 minutes in a tutoring appointment to go, oh wait, I really did understand that and I didn't need help, than you are waiting 2 weeks and going like, I think I'll figure it out. And then now the semester is kind of running on without you, and it's going to be harder to get an appointment, and you're going to wait even longer. And what started as a small problem has now become a very big problem. So if there is any part of you that is like, I might want tutoring, just set it up. You can always cancel it later if you find you're not using it or not needing it. But do not wait to set up tutoring. Do not wait to email or call or go to office hours with questions for your professors. That is probably the biggest mistake you can make.
I just want to add one more thing, Sarah, with waiting too long to ask questions. Also, if you have specific questions on an assignment, on expectations or anything like that, there can be a lot of blurred lines with taking an online course. You might have some instructors who are going to email you 24/7, 11 p.m., 3 o'clock on a Sunday. Again, making sure you understand the expectations with certain instructors. If you have an assignment due at midnight on Sunday or 11:59 on Sunday, do not wait until 8 p.m. on Sunday to email the instructor and say, hey, I have a question about this assignment. So make sure, Monday through Friday, you should almost always be getting a response from your instructor unless they've told you otherwise. But definitely take a look at your assignments a couple days in advance. That way, if you have any questions, you know you can email your instructor and get feedback before that deadline.
Absolutely. And on that note, it is reasonable for professors to take 24 to 48 hours to reply to you. You are not their only student. You are not in the only class that they teach. They have likely well over 100 students with different assignments and different timelines. And if you need something, you really do want to plan on that. Okay, if this assignment is due at 11:59 on Sunday, the last time I can reasonably expect, like right during the work week, an email back is going to be probably Friday at 5. So I need to send an email out by Wednesday at the end of the day if I think I'm going to have a problem on this assignment. And then if for some reason, right, like you don't hear back by Sunday, well, you absolutely did your due diligence, and you can go back and point to, I asked for help on Wednesday for something that was on Sunday, and that professor is going to work with you. But, you know, as someone who does teach classes, it is clear in my syllabus that I don't make myself available on the weekend. And the number of times that I'll come back in on a Monday to someone who has sent me 10 emails between Saturday and Sunday because they weren't sure about an assignment, it was way too late at that point. So just know 24 to 48 hours is completely reasonable. So you don't want to get into that, I'm emailing my professor 14 times in one day and then saying I emailed my professor 14 times and I haven't heard back. Like, that's not a reasonable turnaround. So just know that you need to be planning ahead. I feel like we've probably covered a lot of tips for success, and we will probably go over more of this in depth. And really, if you want some real tips for success, we are running the Proactively Planning Your Semester seminars throughout I think we're running it twice, right? Throughout this week. So if you are part of TRIO, watch your e-letter, and that might be a great fit for going more in depth for tips to success and how to plan out your semester and make sure you're off to a good start. So just to like plug another like time management and planning seminar, which will go into more details. But for just some basic tips, you can write things in planners all you want. If you're me, you'll spend 2 days writing things in planners, and then you might as well light the planner on fire. You'll never look at it again. So I'm personally a really big advocate of setting reminders in my phone that I can also ignore. But at least I'm getting an alert on my phone that every time I pick up my phone, I go, yep, still haven't done the laundry. But that's a really easy way. And it is also lower effort. You can sit with your syllabus and just say like, hey Siri, remind me on October 5th of whatever you want to be reminded of. And my phone's it's doing it now. So, and maybe that's that I have an assignment due in 1 week. And then you send and put another reminder in for 1 day before it's due, so that you are getting alerts throughout the semester. So I think reminders in your phone are the trick. I know other people love planners. I already mentioned keeping a folder for each class on your computer. And for that, it's not just the syllabus. It's when you're doing your work online, it's really easy to just start typing your work out in Blackboard and go through assignments. But it is not a perfect system, and there are glitches and it crashes and there are problems. You always want your own copy of your work, always. So you always want to be doing your work on your computer, saving it on your computer, maybe backing it up somewhere, but you want a folder with all of the work or all of your notes or all of your everything for each of your classes. That's a big tip. Another piece of just being an online student is you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. It can't, because you're not getting that external once or twice a week. I have a class meeting and I'm gonna from there have a clear plan and what I'm gonna do this evening to be ready for my next class. Some classes are really great and you're going to have a weekly folder and it's 1 week at a time and you can stay up on things, but other classes really won't have due dates in that same way and you really have to manage your own time. Others maybe will have set due dates, but it's maybe one thing a month and you need to be keeping up with everything to not have the most awful 3 days of your life trying to do a month of work. So you need a plan, and whether that's just managing your time and setting aside, I'm going to spend 2 hours on these 3 days for these classes and 2 hours on these other 3 days. You also want to not just set the time aside, but have a plan for what you're going to do with that time. Having 2 hours to do your English homework isn't necessarily useful. Having 2 hours to do the first part of this English assignment and to get this reading done is useful. So you want to be sure, again, you're using that syllabus and seeing what's due and what am I doing with this time. Again, you'll get more into that with a proactively planning your semester seminar. Communicate, it's the biggest. Your professors are human, you're human. Build relationships. Don't wait until you're having a problem. I think I'm kind of a pushover as a professor, and I know there are a couple of you who are in my class. So this might not be true for me, but like in general, someone who has built a relationship with me, come to office hours, ask me good, insightful questions when they've had them, or ask me silly questions that they were embarrassed to ask, who then comes to me and says, I'm having this problem, I need an extension, is going to get an extension, almost no questions asked from me. Someone who has not talked to me once, has handed in half their work a day late, and now wants an extension on something, that's a lot harder to say, yeah, no problem, right? Build your relationships. And that's the biggest, if I have one trick for how to survive college, it's build relationships. That is how you are successful and how you get opportunities, build relationships. Otherwise, please do your reading. It's an online class. You can't just go to class and take good notes and hope you can get away with it. You have to open your textbooks. Please do that.
That just about rounds up all of the content we wanted to provide for you guys. While we're still recording, are there any kind of general online class questions that any of you guys have? You can drop them in the chat box. Feel free to unmute yourself. That way, anybody watching back the recording can hear your great questions as well.
Or if any of you, I know some of you put some great stuff in the chat box, if any of you have like great insider tips as students to add, we would love to have that as well.
Yeah, I'll share. Elizabeth has said that she has separate files on the desktop and keeps, I'm assuming, Syllabus and 3-ring binders. It's extremely helpful. Also, a great tip is to block time during the week and treat it like you're in person. Yes, that's a great tip. If needed, leave home and go elsewhere to do your work so you feel like you're going to class. I love that tip. I tell people that all the time. Come to campus. We have space in the library. There are quiet spots all throughout campus. Bring your laptop, bring your headphones, get yourself set up. I can promise you it's very motivating. If you say, I can't go home until I finish this 3-page paper or until I finish reading, these 15 pages, you're going to be pretty motivated instead of if you're just sitting at home on your bed, constantly going between your reading, your TV. You have so many other options. Get yourself to a nice quiet spot. Give yourself that time frame. I'm here for 2 hours. This is what I need to get done. Extremely motivating. Any questions,
Great
thoughts?
one, Elizabeth, that like print out as much as you can, handouts, charts, anything you need for a class that like if your computer goes down, that you can still work on things. And I think that that's like great, just having that contingency plan on that maybe things aren't perfect. So I'm not going to waste this time, that I still have something I can be working on and making progress. I think that that's another really great one. And if you're part of TRIO, you can stop in the office and print with us. So if you're looking at handouts and all of that and saying like, well, that's great, but I don't have a printer, just come see us.
If you are watching this back as a recording, please make sure to click the link in the title and do the evaluation.